Jennifer, here we are again.
Yes.
Right now, I would like you to talk about your son and, his beginnings and challenges, and then how this product has been helping him.
Yeah. Um, we have a almost 7-year-old son, and his name is Seth. He was adopted. We got him directly from the hospital. At 11 days old, they called us, and he was addicted to 4 drugs. So he was a drug baby. And they ended up taking him at 3 days from the bio parents, and he laid in the hospital until day 11 without one person. He, of course, had nurses and those kind of things, but we all know that there's still there was no bonding there. And so we brought him home, and he was able to come off of the morphine when we left, but we still had not completely detoxed. And so we went through about a month of detox after we got home. Sleep for 15 minutes, awake for a couple hours. Sleep for 15 minutes, awake for a couple hours. So definitely not that newborn stage. Um, Seth was he always was behind in his development, but we just took that as um that he was really not developing those first few months because he was detoxing, which is known for a lot of drug babies. So we always just chalked it up to that. Um, in about I would say a year almost, Seth never really crawled. He rolled. Um, he did not end up walking until he was almost 2 years old. We had to carry him everywhere. And even then, he always fell, which I know babies fall when they're beginning to walk. But this just was more than normal. Um, he just never seemed like he could get his footing underneath of him. So, of course, we did early intervention and started some occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy. And of course, through all of that, they diagnosed him with sensory processing disorder. But nobody could ever figure out what was going on with his muscles. He had very little fine motor control, um, did not feed himself, had even to pick food up and put it in his mouth was extremely difficult. Uh, he had a very traumatic visit with his bio father, and it really, everything stopped. Anything that he was progressing stopped. Clapping, smiling, babbling, everything. But also at the same time, we got the vaccinations that they give you like 3 or 4 at once. And so we didn't know if it was the vaccinations, if it was this traumatic visit, because he started to have night terrors. Um, and so it took us probably a good 4 months before Seth started to smile again, clap his hands, um, all of those things. So as we progressed, he did good with his occupational therapist. Absolutely adored her. So that was one of his favorite things to do. But still, the fine motor never came like it should come. And then we began to notice that now Seth has not been, he has been tested and he is not autistic. They have ruled that out. He is one of the most intelligent little boys that you could ever meet. And but about a year and a half ago, we just noticed that we always had to help him up the stairs. He couldn't walk up the stairs. He couldn't walk down the stairs. He could not. It just seemed like the more time progressed, the more he grew, the more his muscles became almost rigid. And so we were asked to go to a neurologist and see a neurologist. And our first appointment, it was, of course, something that we did not want to hear. They at first thought, well, muscular dystrophy, because of the way Seth got up when he was asked to sit down. And like, he couldn't even sit Indian style. Like, he does not do his legs crossed. And when he sits, it's always straight out. Legs are, it's not normal, a typical child. And so we went to the first neurology appointment, and of course, devastated, thinking, but we had overcome so much to begin with Seth, that it didn't matter. We were going to overcome this too. And so we did DNA testing, which was very easy. I got to just swab the side of his mouth. And they, some markers came back that were odd, but nobody's ever told me what those were or why they were odd. And so the next step, they gave us a bunch of names, and I wish I could remember all of the disorders. But they, of course, they're so big that, and I don't know if I've blocked those out of my mind or what. But they decided that they wanted to do an MRI on Seth. And of course, with Seth's beginnings, he has always been very attached to mommy and daddy. He stays with my mom, but that's it. And of course, I think he feels does deal with some abandonment issues, which I think he has a right to do that. But so we went in for the MRI. They were sure that it was a muscle disorder, so they wouldn't put a mask on to give him gas. They ended up giving him ketamine to knock him out, and then gave him fentanyl and 3 other drugs because they needed him to stay completely asleep, and they needed him to not move. So they asked us to leave, but Seth's eyes were still open, so I knew he could see us. I knew he knew we were leaving. And so the MRI, he was back there for 2.5, 3 hours, back in the MRI machine. He was supposed to be back in the MRI machine for 8 hours, and they got it down to 2.5, 3, because they said the machine would not allow them to do that. So, and they also did 35 blood tests that day also. And so where most of us would sleep after something like that, Seth was awake and sick to his stomach, throwing up, and then all of a sudden the night terrors started again. And he had a hard time sleeping, didn't want to be in his room by himself. ended up sleeping with us. Just, it was almost like the night terrors that we started right after the traumatic visit. So we knew there had been some trauma there. And then we went to the neurology appointment to hear what they had said about the MRI and all of the blood work. And the neurologist is a pediatric neurologist. I won't mention the hospital or his name. And as soon as we got there, Seth immediately started screaming. And so we were doing everything we could. The doctor completely ignored Seth, wouldn't speak to him. Seth kept trying to talk to him. Even though Seth is nonverbal, Seth was still trying to talk. And I didn't mention the nonverbal, but Seth, when I say nonverbal, he could not even babble at all. It was always, that's all we would ever get from him. And so we went into the neurology appointment, and the doctor literally looked at us and he said, yeah, he said, everything was inconclusive, and I think you're just going to have to live with what this is. And we both kind of just were shocked because, well, what is this? You know, if our son we see him progressively getting worse, then how are we supposed to take care of him? What are we supposed to do? And our only other option was for him to go into surgery and do a muscle biopsy. And I thought, 3 hours, and the trauma that he came away from that, and all of the things that they put in his body to be able, it's like almost like a relapse. It was almost like a relapse for a drug addict because of everything that they put in his body. That's literally how he was acting. And so we were just like, and I had been through, had lost my aunt this year. And my dad said, listen, just take a break from doctors and that kind of stuff. You finish what you need to finish with your aunt. He said, and then you can focus 100% on Seth. And because if there was nothing we could do, I was ready to go to Mayo Clinic. I was ready, whatever I had to do, I was going to do. And come Labor Day, we were out at a lady in our church, Linda, at her house. And we were all sitting in her living room, a bunch of us. And she began to tell us about the Hydro Daily and the Micro Dailies and the eye boost that she takes. And just began to tell us her testimony and everything that that she had began to experience. And my question to her was, can children take this? And she said, absolutely, yes. And so she gave me some samples, and Seth has, of course, I already said he has some sensory issues. So I was like, well, this is going to be the test. We're going to put it in his water and we're going to see what happens. And he did not even flinch, not even a little bit. He immediately drank it just like he would. Seth only drinks water with some non-dye flavoring, no sugar or anything like that, flavoring in his water. And he drank it right down. And I said, okay. And then I said, okay, well, let's keep on going. So we went 2 or 3 days, and it never even fazed him. And then all of a sudden, I talked to Beth and to Denise, and we got him on a regimen. They sent everything to me, and we began doing everything. We began doing the hydro daily, the um, digestive boost, the probiotic boost, the collagen, the omega 3s. I didn't do the micro dailies at first because I wasn't sure how. And then I talked to Beth, and we just open everything up, and it goes directly in Seth's water, just because he doesn't swallow pills. Um, and it's easier to sneak it in there than it is to ask him to take it. And so granted, the first week, I even called Linda and I said, Linda, is this normal? Because there was so much, I hope it's okay to say this, but poop. I was like, where is this all coming from? Because he wasn't really eating. That was the other thing that happened with the MRI. He had stopped eating almost everything that we had gotten him to finally eat. And she said, yeah, I think he's just going through a detox and everything is just coming out of his system. And that lasted for about 3 to 4 days. But we knew with the hydro daily that he was getting everything he needed, and he was hydrated. So it wasn't like we were worried about him. He wasn't acting sick or like he had the flu or anything. It was just all of this poop. And then after that, the next week, I think the first thing that happened was he started sleeping in his room. He was okay with that. And then we have a lot of stairs in our house, and we have stairs that go from our great room into our kitchen. And he walked up the stairs without holding on to anything. And we were like, we didn't say nothing because we didn't want to make a big deal about it. And then all of a sudden we were reading, we had been reading He Loves the Very Hungry Caterpillar book. And we went to a store and he found a stuffed caterpillar, the very hungry caterpillar. And he was playing and wanted to read the book, and he would usually just bring me the book. And that day he walked over and he picked up the stuffed caterpillar. Now he didn't say it as clear as I'm saying caterpillar, but he looked at me and he said, Gababa. And I just stood there, and tears immediately came. And the more time went on, he began to babble. We have never, very, very rarely, Seth has said words, but he would say them and we would never hear them again. He has said helicopter. He has said ice cream cone, but he would say it for a day and I've never heard it again. And we were with my mom and dad, and they were leaving, and they said, bye, Seth, we love you. And he looked at him and goes, bye-bye. And so we are constantly getting these words. Now, I do know, because of prayer, that along with prayer and this hydro, that God has begun to do the healing in Seth's body, that not even a doctor could figure out what was wrong. And so we really believe, and we just see it every day, him getting into the car by himself, us not having to lift him. He's become a curious little boy, instead of being fearful of everything. He's more outgoing. He wants to play with other kids. He his eyes are bright. He goes to Charlotte for a it's called a neuro movement therapy, and she even has noticed a difference in his body. And Seth was always his body was always in a fight or flight mode. So he was always just, if you can just imagine what you are in a fight or flight mode, that's what his body was all the time. And she has noticed that his body is more relaxed, his muscles are more relaxed, his body responds faster to the therapy. And there's something new all the time. And I will admit, I was like, okay, well, this is going to work, but what happens a few weeks down the road? Well, he's been on it since the first week of September. We haven't missed a day. And he continually gets, there's something new every week that is coming. And he's becoming a typical child. And so just the healing that's been happening in his body to us is just remarkable, amazing.
What a blessing.
Yeah.
It's these stories like this that inspire and help many. And of course, I'm the same way. I believe that the Lord is top, and then we have to do the work to help with our belief.
Yes.
And, as the body gets fed, the brain gets fed, as the gut biome gets back to normal, then, all those clogged receptor cells and
Yes.
the ways for the nerve, the paths, and that start opening up. And I really believe that's what you're seeing. And with him going to the bathroom like he did, that was a really good
Yes.
detox that his body needed.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I'm really excited. I know Denise is too, about
Yes.
his future. And
I would have him come out, but he's on his way to a haircut. So maybe at a different time we can let him.
We'll get him again. But
Yeah.
I want to say I admire your parenting and your will to just keep trying to do the best you can and keep learning. That's what's important, is that
Absolutely.
you're open and you just, it's like, okay, we're going to figure this out, do or die. We're going to figure it out.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I want to just thank you so much for doing this, and then
Yeah.
we'll do this again with your husband and your dad and
Yes.
the family.
Yes. Yes. Yes.